records say Rabbi Weinberger, Weinberger, was the Rav of the Young Israel of Williamsburg. Williamsburg, I stand corrected. My father remembers it from the Sifta Torah Agudath, that got smoother back in the day. And Rav Weinberger was the daily RABBInim from Agudath, and he was from the original members of the Igud HaRabbonim, and he served as president of the Igud HaRabbonim from 1956 to 1958. After Rabbi David Howland ever served as president, and before Rabbi Mendel Feldman served as president. I checked the records. So thank you so much. The dean is all yours.
We find in the history of Klal Yisrael, we find two people who are referred to as Rabbeinu, our teachers. We find Moshe Rabbeinu, he's our teacher, he's unknown, he's the one who gave us the Torah. We find Rabbi Yehuda Nussi, the one who wrote the Mishnayos, the one who originated writing down the Torah Sheval Peh. And both of them have unique qualities. One unique quality that they share. In Moshe Rabbeinu we find the Ish Moshe Unav Mi'oid B'Kaluda. We find Moshe Rabbeinu his anivus. By Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, his anivus is humbleness. By Yehuda Nasi we find also the Indian of being humble. It says Mishameis Rabbi, when Yehuda Nasi passed away, his Batul Anava, the Indian of a novel was Batul, which is interesting. We see that the Indian of a teacher, the Indian of a teacher has to do with humbleness. In order to be a conduit, in order to impose, in order to give over the ashpah, in order to project and to have an effect on people, you have to be selfless. It has to be with selflessness. This we see in this week's parasha. It says Vayichli Trimmer. Hashem is telling Klal Yisrael to take for us, bring me Trimmer, and it says Me'es Kolish Ashi Yedveni Liboy, which means that you should take the people themselves, that you take the people from Klal Yisrael, take the people from the Jewish nation, and appoint the ones who can be appointed, appoint the ones who are worthy. But what is required? What is required? In order to be a leader, in order to be a leader of Klal Yisrael, in order to be a leader, to be a person who helps people, to be a person who is there for his congregants, you have to be someone who is selfless. And that is a catch-22 situation. A leader gets covered. A leader gets respect. And the Indian of a leader, when a person has to be a Ish Moshe on of the humbleness, is when a person is not negates themselves, and the person is there just to do for the other. That person can be a leader because he has no personal agenda. There is a Hafliga letter from Kiv Eger. Kiv Eger was one of the Gedolim, one of the greats of Klal Yisrael. He was also a Rav. He was a rabbi, and he speaks about. There's a letter that Rabbi Yosef, in the Sefer Anaf Eitz Avis, he has a Sefer on Pirkei Avis. He brings a letter on Isnoa Rabbanis. He says it says the Mishnah, a person should keep away from the Rabbanis. You should hate being a rabbi. And it says what Kiv Eger says. I'm going to read his words, and I'll explain his words, but his words, it's just, whoever reads this word, this should be hanging by every rabbi in shul. Or by every Rav. This is what he says. This is printed in Sefer Chit HaMashilish. He writes like this: Ma'oidi senaisias Rabbanis. I've hated being a rabbi. Vayisi bareach. I ran away from it like an arrow being shot. To hold myself greater over other people. Milisnase al b'nei adam. To hold myself above other people. It's worse than death, this death sentence that I have. What do I gain? That I sit up front, I'm in charge, people give me covet, to hold myself above other people. And I should speak to them and tell them what they're doing wrong. It says, Ach, because of my many sins, this is the going of Kivega, who was known as one of the most humblest people. It says, because Tavati b'yavei mitzula shel RABBONIS, I sank into this pit of being a rabbi. It says, She'even negef l'gufi, this is a stone that's hitting my body and it's hitting my soul. Katzti b'chayai, my life is not worth anything. Mipnei HaRabbonis. Half of the Galosha. Someone who sits for Rabbonis, that's considered Neved Hashem because I'm getting covered. That's what it means to serve Hashem, to serve God. The Rabbonis have brought many a good man and has brought them down. These Rabbonis, when a person is put in a position of power, in a position of covet, there is a pitfall. There's a pitfall to be out for your own covet. There's a pitfall to be out for your own power. It says, Hashem Yedeya mi Yitzari, only Hashem knows how many times I have fasted that I should be saved from this terrible, quote-unquote, from being a rabbi. Most of, this is what he writes. He says, most of my prayers on Yom Neru, this is on Shuni and Kippur, most of my prayers on Yom Neru, which you would think when a person is praying on the high holy days, what's he praying for? Have a good year, have a good life. He says, most of my prayers have been that I should be saved from this Indian of being a rabbi. To save me from this jail. He said, I would rather be, I'd rather be a Shabbos in a shul. Or I'd rather be a night watchman. And then he ends off, whoever can help me and save me, it's like you saved my life. This is the letter of Rabbi Kivega. We see from here that the Indian, there is an extreme pitfall in being a rabbi. And this is something, and any organization, any time that a person is a leader, whether he's a leader of an organization, it says, in order to be a leader, you have to have, in a way, it's skeletons in your closet, which is kind of common. But it means that you should have something not to be haughty. You should have something that keeps you grounded. You should have something that keeps you part of the people. And to understand what your job is, your job as a leader, your job as a rabbi, your job as a politician, is to help people, and not your own agenda. This selflessness, to be humble and do for the people, to do for God. That is your job. We see with Moshe Rabbeinu, when he created the first alliance, Moshe Rabbeinu, he made the first alliance. It says in the Torah. He says, Mil Hashem alai. Who is to Hashem? Who has pure intentions? A person has to have pure intentions. In order to be a leader, a person has to negate their own personal, their own personal she'ifas that they have, their own personal drive, their own need to feel, because that just stops it. And the truth is, I'll be Hasidus, if a person has any self, it stops. He is not able to be mashpia, to bring the shefa down from Shemayim, because he is standing in the way. You have to be an ayin. You have to be someone who does not have a sense of self. If you don't have a sense of self, if you have anivus, that is the tafkid. That is the tachlis. And that is a very catch-22 situation, as it says, because a rabbi, by definition, he gets covered. And it's a pitfall, like it says in Kivega, you could lose that. However, is the Indian, when you do have an organization, that the organization is made Laman Hashem, and the organization is made Laman Yisrael, then a person does have the ability, then Hashem gives that person a siyata d'shmaya. And Hashem says, even Rabbi Kivega is speaking about keeping away from being a rabbi, because he doesn't want this nisoyin, he doesn't want this test. Every person has this test. Any person who has a position of responsibility, a position that people look up to, that person has a responsibility not to be haughty and to be humble and to understand that he is there just to do. He is a servant. And that's what Moshe Eved Hashem. He was a servant of Hashem. And he was the RAA Mehemna. He was the shepherd, the trusted shepherd of Klal Yisrael. Why? Because he had this ingredient of anivus. It says in the Pusik of Nidbre Yiri Hashem Yishaliyai, that if you have an organization and the Chachamim come together and they join together, is L'Yirei Hashem L'Chosh Ve'Shemoy. There are people who are doing it L'Shem Hashem. They're doing it because of a Yikchi Li L'Shmi. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he was able to do, and he was able to accomplish, because he did it with the purest of intentions. He did it l'man Hashem, and he did it without any benefit to himself. This is a home test, a boy's side, that we can all do. The home test, when anyone has any, there's always this is not something that is, this is given over to everybody. This is given over to anyone who is in a position of power, in a position that has some semblance and some shyness of getting respect for what you're doing. A person has to check himself. And that's Ishmael Shalom. The person has to see that he should negate himself, negate his own. There's no person who does not think about himself. There's no person who is not out to do, it's just a natural tendency. Anyone who does that, it's natural. A person thinks, first comes me. A person obviously has their own intentions as mine, but a person who's given over a position of power, has this achrayus, has a responsibility, has a responsibility to make a cheshbon and nefesh, and to understand an Adarab. By doing this, when a person does this, this brings him a siyata d'shmai. This helps that Hashem will be mashpiyah through him. Then he becomes a conduit, then he becomes a tziner, he becomes somebody who could be mashpiyah. And therefore, this is when Moshe Rabbeinu said, Mi Lashem Elai. He took people with pure intentions. Who was coming to Hashem? Keil Mulei Rachman. Keil Mulei Rachman, Hashem, who was full of Rachman. Mulei is also Rosh Chodesh. Mi Lashem Elai. How do you enact Rachman? How do you get Rachman? You get Rachman by doing it L'Shem Shemayim. You get Rachman by negating your own personal intentions. This is how you are able to accomplish. Therefore, an organization like the Igud that is based upon just helping Klal Yisrael, is based upon to doing for people and for helping people without any personal gain, without any personal fanfare. This is what brings upon the atzloch. Of having a seudah mitzvah. Of a seudah mitzvah, there's a story said with Rabbinical Kodesh. Rabbinical Kodesh, he was a moil. And one time he did the bris and he was a moil. He did circumcision. Once when he finished the bris, the dam did not stop. The child was bleeding, and he couldn't stop it. And everyone is standing over there. Nobody's was beginning the meal. They're all afraid what's going to happen here. All of a sudden, Rabbi Zisha comes in, and Zisha says, "Fast, everyone should go wash and begin the meal immediately." And as soon as they did, they started the meal. They all washed, and as soon as they began the meal, the child began to the bleeding began to stop, and sure enough, it stopped totally. And he says, after they asked Rabbi Zisha, what happened over here? So he says in Puzik, it says, "Vayachsi alekim." If you see alekim, there's a midas adin. If you see a midas adin, then vayoychli vayishti. It's almost like Nebenesen. There's a vayishti, you should begin a seudah. So the union of having a seudah mitzvah, having a seudah Rosh Chodesh, the organization of the Igud, not just doesn't only work with their organization while they're organizing and doing, but the union of a seudah mitzvah also removes a midas adin. It also brings upon a midah of chesed. It also negates the midas adin. I want to thank the Igud RABBINIM for this opportunity of being able to address the Agudath, and I wish them great hatzlacha in all their endeavors.
Thank you, Rav Shmuel Wohlberg.